Previously on Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG, we took a look at Booster 3 and the Dark Duel Stories promo cards and just how they affected the meta from region to region. But as time marches on, so does Yu-Gi-Oh! In its first year. As we move on to July 22nd, 1999, the next core booster is released, Volume 4. Don't get too excited from Pegasus on the cover, as his tunes are not in this set. This may be a surprise to some of you, considering that the last release, the DDS promos, included Shine Palace, a card that Pegasus used and features Toon World in its art. Then again, it's not the first time Konami did this. Looking at you, Volume 1 with Blue Eyes on the cover. What should have been on the cover is V4's chase card, Summon Skull. At this point in time, effect monsters were slowly growing over normal monsters due to their boundless ceiling of potential effects. What would normals do? Keep getting stronger and stronger, and then what? This was the issue coming into play with the official rules. The tribute mechanic did slow things down, but it was effects that changed card philosophy. For that matter, tributes were only becoming worse as no one wanted to play high-class mons aside from a singleton copy of Blue Eyes. Mid-class were defined by either Curse of Dragon, which was average at best, or Giant Mech Soldier, which was more of a side deck card against Dragon Capture Jar. And then in Volume 4, this video, came along Summon Skull. Only a single tribute for a monster with 2500 attack. That's a stat equaling Dark Magician. While its defense stat is rather tiny, this was a blessing in disguise as it was probably the reason Skull was a level 6 in the first place. But who cares? One tribute for such a high attack is nothing short of exceptional. Despite it being lower than Blue Eyes' 3k attack, 25 was much greater than Curse. More importantly, it could beat over walls with no issue, something Curse could only tie with. This was huge as now it meant in the face of Skull, walls acting as defenders was essentially useless. Though walls still had an important purpose, to act as tribute fodder for Skull. Keep in mind that low-level mons still had trouble beating over 2k defense, which made walls primed to keep around for a turn to tribute over. In that regard, you want to get rid of opposing walls ASAP. A tricky task as that set could be a man-eater bug. So do you attack or leave the face down on the field? Skull affected the game more than just being a big beat stick. It made face downs more threatening by proxy, made walls a double-edged sword, phased out both Curse and Blue Eyes, the White Dragon would still see play in Price of Blood areas, and made reinforcements that much weaker since Kunai with Chain was the only battle trap that could let low-level mons beat Skull. And aside from Skull, all the new tribute mons were nothing short of being weak, further emphasizing Skull's weight class. Thankfully, V4 had more than just beaters. It had Magician of Faith too. While weak, this effect mod has a great salvage effect to return any of your used magic cards back to your hand. Don't forget that due to the July Phantom list, Dark Hole and Raigeki were at one copy, so now you could use those cards multiple times per duel. For the most part, the main target would be Pot of Greed since it was an immediate advantage, unlike Dark Hole or Feather Duster. This gave more prominence to the idea of card advantage. Really, the only downside was setting it without Magic Engraved, though considering Pot was at 3, there was a high chance Faith would always be active. On the flip side, we also got Mask of Darkness. It's Faith that can recur a trap card instead. Even though there are less great traps compared to Magic, you still have solid targets like Trap Hole and Kunai. In addition, it was also the perfect monster for Crush Card Virus if you wanted to go more towards a viral deck. All in all, Mask was more of a tactical choice. Odd though that V4 didn't add any new traps to pair with this card. The other big release in V4 were the Tribal Removal cards. This is specific field-wide removal for the following types: Machine, Rock, Insect, Fish, and Warrior. Given tribal decks aren't popular, you had to decide which removal to play, could potentially hit your own monsters, and it doesn't hit face-down cards. General removal was more than enough. Otherwise, we did get a chunk of cards worth mentioning. Petite Moth and Cocoon of Evolution gave a proper summoning condition for Moth, but 6 turns was asking for way too much when Skull only took 2 turns, barring Reborn plays. At the very least, Cocoon was a wall if you needed more of them. The new Harpy Lady Sisters, and Elegant Egotist allowed for a Harpy strategy and for Cyber Shield to finally be played. Sadly, the deck just doesn't have enough firepower and too many cards to make the concept work at this stage. Low-level beaters remain the same, just with new 1500s. Armored Lizard, Destroyer Golem, Ground Attacker Bugroth, and Kojikosi, all Earth monsters funnily enough. I wonder why Konami didn't want to release more 1600s, or more of the 700 buff equips for that matter. Effect-wise, the only other two we got were Electric Lizard and Steel Scorpion that could technically get you some value in this format if they were your only options. Lastly, there was another mystery limb released. Last episode, I discussed the DDS game guides in which the second one would be released on August 10th, making the limbs amount to 4. Weird, but alright. And if you're enjoying this video, definitely consider liking, subscribing, all that YouTube jazz. And if you want to take that support one step beyond, then definitely become a Janjo Zone patron, because your help goes a long way to ensure the future of the Janjo Zone. Taking a quick jump from V4, we go to August 20th for the last addition to this current format, the Valuable Book 1. The Valuable Book is a long-running card encyclopedia, a strategy book, if you will. They usually contain promo cards such as VB1 with Dokuro Rider and Revival of Dokuro Rider. What is this blue card? This is a main deck ritual monster that requires the Mon in hand, the ritual magic to perform the summon, and the magic needs you to have enough monsters to match or exceed the level of the blue card. To note, the ritual magic, with icons not existing yet, is specified as a ritual class of magic cards. The new summoning mechanic is similar to fusions. You need at least 3 cards to perform the summon, many of which are inherent bricks. In that same vein, the cost is not worth the reward, as Dokuro Rider has a measly 1900-1850 stats with 6 stars, meaning you need to tribute a chunk of monsters or stronger monsters for this guy who can't even beat over a wall. You should have been a level 4 so you could convert a normal beater into a relatively stronger one. At least then you can make use of its special summon. Rituals may be a new type of card, and even still they're just a blue colored fusion monster. It was a card that people talked about, but no one actually played. Perhaps in the Price of Blood areas, some people may have believed this could be summoned off of that as well, which in that case it would be even worse in the face of stronger mons. Better to leave the Skull Rider to ride off in the sunset. Volume 4 is a curious set. It pushed away all other high-level monsters in the wake of Skull. This also gave way for people running Hain and Stop Defense more frequently. The set, while changing a lot, introduced little in ways of power cards. It was just Skull and Faith, with some people looking at Mask and the tribal removal. That is, unless you only bought the set for Water Emotics, I wouldn't blame you. Decks funneled down to just good stuff, with the Virus decks as a possibility. Card by card, it felt more like a booster set. Nevertheless, it spoke greater with fewer words, as gameplay mentality did change from before and opened the duel's eyes to what could be. With that in mind, this was certainly a new volume in the Book of Duel Monsters. A relatively normal environment, until people set fire to the proverbial library. And that's something we'll get to next time.